This is where you were standing at that time.
On November 22nd, 1963, yeah. We had coverage of Kennedy in Fort Worth the night before, and I'd watched that. Even though I was a Republican, I really admired Kennedy. I thought he was part of the new breed, a new politician, replacing Eisenhower from the oldest to the youngest. That he was attractive, telegenic. Excuse me, he understood the modern media, used it well. I thought he was smart enough to be able to balance a lot of things at once and bring some common sense to bear. But anyway, he just had style. He was unbelievably charismatic. And that was reinforced by the coverage in Fort Worth. So the next morning, I was watching our coverage out of Love Field. And they got off the airplane, got the flowers and all of that. And sure enough, you could see the consternation on the face of the Secret Service. Kennedy immediately ignored the guidelines on the tarmac and went to the fence where the people were and started shaking hands. I thought, this guy is such a natural. So the reports coming back from downtown Dallas were very positive, wildly enthusiastic. 200,000-300,000 people in the streets, everybody cheering. Remember, this probably the closest thing we have to royalty. And the fact that Jackie was making the trip with him just added to the excitement. She normally did not make political trips, but they were grieving together over the death of their infant son, and she was making the trip with him. So that just added to it. And I thought at the last minute, our studio was about 4 blocks down that way. And I thought, you know, I'm going to walk over and see the motorcade. I want to see the president and the first lady. And as I was leaving the front door, one of the guys from sales came up and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go over and see the motorcade. You want to go?" So we started walking over here. And about, 2 blocks into it, I kept looking up at the rooftops. I kept looking at the open windows. And I'm wondering, how did they secure all that? And I'm sure they did, but I didn't see any snipers, didn't see any security personnel. And I remember turning to my colleague and saying, you know, if there were going to be anything like an assassination attempt, this would be the place. I don't know why I said that or what prompted it. Walked on over and came here and was waiting for the motorcade and turned around, and here came the limo. And I didn't even notice John and Nellie Conley in the jump seats, to tell you the truth. I was just struck by Mr. and Miss Kennedy, and I thought, that's what a first couple ought to look like. They were just magnificent. Jackie was closest to me on the left side, and the president was on the other side. She had this marvelous little wave and the lovely pink outfit. And JFK had this sort of acknowledging gesture and would brush the forelock off his forehead. And I hollered out something when they were right there, like, "Hey, welcome to Dallas, Mr. President." Then they turned the corner and boom. That first sound is something you don't forget. It was, you know, you're now dealing in split seconds, a total of maybe 20 seconds for the whole thing, but 6 seconds with the shots. And that first shot, you intellectually, you don't accept it as a shot. Not that couldn't be a shot. Not in my hometown. Not 4 blocks from where I work. And I turned to my colleague and said, that's a firecracker. And then the second shot. But during that first shot, just as I was making that remark, I glanced up, and in the 5th floor window, there were 3 guys hanging out of the window and looking up and pointing. And I glanced up briefly at the 6th floor, but to this day, I couldn't tell you if I saw a rifle barrel or not. Everything was sort of happening very fast. And within a second or two, that second shot, and Kennedy's reaction was more of it was almost a flash. He went to the left, and his right arm had been on the limo, and it came up, both hands actually, and it came up sort of like this. And Jackie reached over and grabbed his arm as it began coming down. And in hindsight, he couldn't slump all the way over. He had a very tightly laced back brace. And it's interesting to speculate, had he not had the back brace and slumped, what would have happened, because the assassin would not have had a clear third shot. Anyway, then again, the car kept traveling. The limo never slowed down. It never curved, never turned, didn't make any quick stops until after the third shot. After the third shot, it paused momentarily and took off. The guys in the front seat had turned around, looking up and looking back. And the third shot, Kennedy had a much more violent reaction. I had glanced, I think, at the front seat momentarily, and Kennedy really went forward and then and snapped back, went to the left violently, and Jackie was screaming, "Oh my God!" And then a split second later, Jackie had turned and had gotten up on the back seat and then was going out on the back of the limo, and that's when Clint Hill, who had been a car back, Secret Service guy, sprinted forward, ran as fast as he could, and had barely got it, and got held onto the limo and pushed them both down, got her down. And it was erroneously reported by Life magazine and others that Jackie, first of all, was trying to get out of the car, or second, she was trying to help Clint Hill get on the car. And actually, what we found out was that she was trying to retrieve the piece of skull from her husband's head, which, by the way, she did. She held on to it, and when they got to the hospital, she actually walked in with it and gave it to the attendant. But then the car sped off. The Secret Service man was hollering, "Go, go, 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 go." And they took off for the hospital, and motorcycle cop had put his motorcycle down there and came running towards me and said, "Get down." And I thought, no, I've got to get to a phone. I mean, we had no portable equipment. The transistor radio had just been invented. And I realized the closest phone was going to be in the depository building. And you don't stop to think that that's where the assassin or assassins were. I mean, the shots, there were three shots, and they came from in front and above. If you were standing here, there's no doubt about that. And I started running, and I ran that way a little bit down that way, and went across the street. And there was a young couple with two kids right over there. It turned out to be Bill and Gail Newman. I didn't know them at the time. And I stopped, and I don't know why I stopped. I just stopped and said, "Are you okay?" And he rolled over and he said, "Yeah, but they got the president. They blew the side of his head in." So those words were in my mind, and I ran a little further up and then thought, no, I've got to go to the building. So I ran along the sidewalk and then ran up the steps to the door, and there was a guy standing in the doorway. The door was about half open or something, and I ran up and I said, "Where's the phone?" And he jerked his thumb. He said, "In there." I said, "Thank you." And went on in and got the only phone in the lobby. So I called the station and said, patch me through and just leave the line open. And while I'm running, you're thinking about what you've seen and what you're going to say, operating on instinct. And my instinct was, you go on there and say the president's been shot. Well, how many times? I really couldn't tell on that second shot. Was that an impact? Was it grazed? Did it go in his shoulder? I really couldn't tell. Third shot, if you believe what you saw, it was a hellacious wound, but you can't go on the air and say the president's been killed. I don't know that. That would have been totally irresponsible. I also did not know the condition, whether that was fatal. I didn't know this guy, Newman, who said they blew the side of his head in. I felt uncomfortable in saying that, as that's, once you're that graphic, you're sort of committed. And I thought, I've got to be factual, I've got to say what I know to be true. And then the other thing that was going through my mind, just split second, I'm on the phone 2 minutes after it happened, was that this is a conspiracy. And that was very much the mindset of everyone involved for about 72 hours. Well, if it's a conspiracy, and I go on the phone and say the president's been shot, much less killed, is someone listening saying, okay, phase one's done, phase two, do we get a hail of bullets here, or do they go for Air Force One? Do we get bombers? I mean, who knows? I did not want to be responsible for World War III. So I really don't remember what I said. I've heard the tape later. It's in the National Archives. And I did just report what happened, and that there were 3 shots, some witnesses stated he was hit. I really didn't confirm that he had been hit. That just felt more comfortable, and I've thought about that a long time afterwards. Well, anyway, I stayed on the phone about 40 minutes. The lobby was chaos. Remember that it was not against the federal law to kill a president. So what you have is a local homicide. And any uniformed Dallas patrolman could have come in and said, okay, calm down, everybody, go to the walls, let's get some order here. No one did. The sheriff's deputies and the police had come in, and I heard them talking about the 6th floor. And they found the shell casings, brought those down, I got that on the air. Then they found the rifle, brought it down, and I got that on the air. And finally, a guy identified himself as Army Intelligence and asked who I was calling, suggested I wrap it up. And when I tried to get out of the building, it was cordoned off. And I did produce ID and ran back to the station. And when I walked in, the first thing I asked was, is the president dead? They said yes. And I did a brief live video feed and then went to the control room, and we were busy for 3 days and 3 nights.